Hey everyone, I'm Jamie, and I've got a pretty interesting story to share about my mother-in-law, Sarah. Right now, Sarah doesn't really have a say in our lives because we've decided to cut ties with her. Getting to this point wasn't easy at all. Sarah is a classic example of a narcissist. I'm not a psychology expert, but she shows all the signs. She's self-centered and pretty awful, only ever thinking about herself. Interestingly, her son, my husband Paul, is the complete opposite. I think that's mostly because he was mostly raised by his dad after his parents split up when he was young. Sadly, he only reconnected with Sarah after his dad died from a serious illness. From what Paul's told me, it's clear that Sarah is really controlling and manipulative. Paul once told me, "Jamie, my mom expects so much from me. She thinks she's entitled to everything I have and expects me to take care of her forever." He shared how she used to take all his money when he started working during school. For a long time, Paul thought this was normal parental stuff, but it's not healthy. "I told him you were basically her servant, working while she did nothing. But you've got to make some serious financial changes, Paul," I urged. "I know, Jamie," he replied. "I've tried talking to her, but she always guilt trips me about abandoning her or leaving her to fend for herself. I even suggested she get a job, but she refuses to listen." Paul struggled to manage his student loans since he was financially supporting Sarah throughout college. She stopped working when Paul was 17, the same year he got his first job. From then on, he was designated as the family's primary breadwinner, isolated from their extended family and under Sarah's stringent control. He had always considered this dynamic to be normal. He didn't have friends because Sarah didn't allow it, and he couldn't afford a phone. When Paul went to college, he was introduced to a whole new world. Despite Sarah's attempts to prevent him from attending, he pursued higher education. It was there, away from his mother's overwhelming influence and meeting a variety of people, that he finally realized the abnormality of his upbringing. "Paul, your mother has been quite abusive towards you," I told him. "She's manipulated you for years and even squandered the inheritance your father left. Why do you continue to support her?" "What can I do, Jamie?" Paul replied, his voice tinged with resignation. "After hearing for years that she deserves my money, it's hard to shake off. I can't completely cut her off. She's the only family I have left apart from you." "I understand," I said gently, "but you need to reconsider your situation. You're drowning in debt. How much longer can you manage this?" Paul didn't have an answer. He realized that continuing to support Sarah meant he could never escape his financial burdens. This situation also made me question our future together. I was aware that Sarah could become a significant issue, potentially claiming a stake in everything we owned. She already disliked me, resentful of the bond Paul and I shared. "Don't think you can take my son and his money," Sarah would snap at me. "I'm his mother, and the only one who deserves his things. You're just a gold digger trying to steal my son." "You need to stop relying on Paul," I retorted. "He's an adult, and so are you. You're perfectly capable of taking care of yourself." "Shut up, girl. Don't tell me how to live my life. I won't lose my lifestyle for a worthless girl like you. Paul will always be under my control, and I'll make sure of it," she replied sharply. Sarah's harsh words were alarming, but I was determined to stand up for Paul. Unlike him, I had a strong backbone and a flair for subtle revenge, which allowed me to handle Sarah without letting her harm us too deeply. Although I often endured her insults, I found them bearable. As the years passed, both Paul and I finished college. I began working in a studio, and Paul landed an excellent job as a graphic designer. Despite his difficult upbringing, he was a diligent student and achieved considerable success. Nevertheless, Sarah continued to exploit his finances relentlessly. When Paul and I got engaged, Sarah was furious. She accused him of marrying a gold digger and worried aloud about her welfare. "How can you even think of getting married now? You still need to take care of me. Getting married would be a bad financial decision," she argued. "Mom, I'm already taking care of you, and getting married won't change that," Paul reassured her. But Sarah wasn't convinced. "But your wife will take all your money. You'll have nothing left for me. She doesn't earn much, and her mother is no help either. They'll both just become a burden to you." "Excuse me, but my mom and I are perfectly capable of managing on our own. We don't need to rely on your son," I interjected calmly, although internally I seethed at her accusation. I avoided telling her that she was the actual financial burden. I knew it would only ignite a pointless argument, and I preferred to keep the peace. Sarah interpreted my silence as an opportunity to further insult me and my family. My family, valuing respectability, chose not to retaliate against her barbs, preferring not to stoop to arguing with a narcissist. That was until one day something alarming happened. While I was at work, my mom called, puzzled and concerned. "Jamie, why is your stuff at my house?" "Did something happen with Paul?" she asked. "What are you talking about, Mom? Nothing has happened between us." "How do you know it's my stuff?" I replied, confused. "The moving guys told me your name," she explained. This unexpected turn of events hinted at Sarah's deeper meddling, a dark reminder that ignoring her might no longer suffice. When my mom called, she was understandably confused and alarmed. "Jamie, your boxes arrived here with your name and address on them. I've opened a few and they're filled with your clothes. What's going on? Did the movers say who sent them?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. "I think you should come home right away and sort this out," she advised. Taking her advice, I immediately left work and rushed home. As I entered my bedroom, a shocking sight greeted me. My drawers and closet were empty, even my bath products were gone. I was stunned. Descending to the living room, I found Sarah there wearing a smug expression. "What the hell is going on, Sarah? Why did you touch my stuff and send it to my mom's house?" I demanded, trying to keep my composure. Sarah's response was chilling. "I'm here to set things right. From now on, only the homeowner and his mother will live in this house. A mother always has more rights than a wife. It's unfair for you to live here." "What are you talking about? You're out of your mind." I shot back, my anger rising. "Since the house belongs to my son, only he and I will stay here. You will leave and go to a house that is in your name." "So you're saying only the person who owns the house should stay here?" I clarified, trying to understand her twisted logic. "That's exactly what I mean. Now, since I've already sent your stuff away, you can just leave." "Don't worry, my son and I will be very happy here," she declared, then turned and went upstairs. I was furious at her audacity, unable to believe she tried to throw me out of my own house. This house was in my name, and I was the rightful occupant. I couldn't let her force me out without taking action. So I made a strategic call and immediately phoned Paul, urging him to come home as quickly as possible. He said he'd be home soon and would reach me in no time. Despite Sarah's attempts to disrupt our wedding plans, Paul handled the situation well. Although it frustrated him, he still couldn't bring himself to completely sever ties with his mother. After our wedding, we settled into our new home. The details of how we acquired the house aren't pertinent right now, but Sarah was livid when she found out. She called me fuming. "So you've already started messing with my son's money, buying expensive houses without even discussing it with me," she accused. "I have no idea what you're talking about, Sarah. Besides, how Paul and I handle our finances is none of your business," I replied, cutting the conversation short. Her resentment was palpable. "You think you can live in a big house while I'm stuck in this small rented apartment? Mark my words, Jamie, you won't enjoy my son's house alone." At the time, I didn't take Sarah's threats seriously. She had a habit of making such dramatic statements, and I had also developed a habit of ignoring her and not giving her the reaction she wanted. I relayed to my mom when she arrived at our house to check on the situation. We were both deeply unsettled, but I knew we needed to stand our ground and confront this outrageous attempt by Sarah to usurp our home. When Sarah saw my mother, she was visibly flustered. "What the hell, Jen? Why is your mother here? I told you that you and your family can't be here." "I've already sent your stuff to your mother's place," Sarah exclaimed. "Then why is she here?" I replied with a smirk. "Well, you said that from now on, only the homeowner and the mother can stay here. So I called my mother and invited her over." "This house is owned by my son. You should not be here," Sarah countered sharply. "I demand you to leave as soon as possible." I couldn't help but laugh, finding the irony too delicious, and my mother joined in. Though I was angry, the laughter was a welcome relief because I knew what needed to be clarified next. Once we composed ourselves, I turned to Sarah with a calm demeanor. "Just for your information, my dear mother-in-law, this house belongs to me," I began, my tone even but firm. "Yes, this house is in my name. It was part of my inheritance from my grandfather who passed away recently." "You can't be telling the truth. I don't believe you." This house cannot be yours. I know my son got this house for you, Sarah spluttered, disbelief etched across her face. Just wait till he comes home and shows you your place. I will not tolerate you keeping me away from the house, Sarah continued. Sarah's confusion was met with a blunt correction from my mother. She's telling the truth, Sarah. You have some messed up logic about deserving your son's things. Even if the house is Jamie's, you shouldn't be so entitled. Jamie is Paul's wife and is equally entitled to his assets. I don't take advice from freeloaders, Rebecca, Sarah snapped back. I would suggest you keep your mouth shut. As for Paul, I will stay with him and make sure he divorces Jamie soon. Just a few minutes later, Paul walked through the front door, clearly bewildered by the sight of his mother standing in the middle of our living room and even more puzzled to see my mother, whom I hadn't told him I invited over. Hey guys, what's going on here? He asked as he entered. Something has happened, Paul. Your overbearing wife and her mother are trying to take over your house. I have come here to save you from this monstrous family, Sarah declared. Dramatically, Paul, taken aback, responded firmly, Mom, what the hell is going on? Why would you disrespect my wife and her mother? They are standing right here. He then turned to me, giving me the floor to explain. Let me tell you what happened, I began, ready to unveil the entire absurd scenario Sarah had orchestrated. Paul stood in the middle of our living room, utterly stunned as he processed what I had just explained. Oh my God, are you serious, Mom? Did you pack up Jamie's belongings and send them to her mom's house? Did you come into our home and move our things? Who gave you the right to do that? Paul asked, his voice filled with disbelief. I'm just trying to help you, Paul, Sarah protested with feigned innocence. You need to reconsider your marriage. I've been telling you not to tolerate her freeloading behavior. Trust me, I can find you a better wife. Mom, I've told you so many times not to interfere in my marriage. Why are you still doing this? Paul's voice was firm, his frustration clear. Sarah retorted, her tone escalating. I'm standing up for you, Paul. Your wife will drain your finances if you don't end this. That's why I moved into your house. I'm going to stay with you. You need to stop saying it's his house. I interjected firmly, Sarah, I've already told you this house is mine. If any mother is staying, it will be mine. Paul looked exasperated as Sarah continued her tirade. Look at what your witch wife is saying. I told you she's a gold digger. She's already claiming that this house is hers. Mom, stop insulting Jamie. This is ridiculous. Paul snapped, his patience worn thin. She's right, the house belongs to Jamie. It was part of her inheritance after her grandfather passed away. Sarah's face turned ashen as the truth finally seemed to dawn on her. My mother chuckled slightly from the corner, enjoying Sarah's discomfort, while Paul looked like he was on the verge of losing his temper completely. Sarah tried to regain her composure, scrambling for another angle. It doesn't matter since you two are married. This house is yours too, Paul. I have the right to stay here. Why should I live in a rented apartment when you have a house? I won't let Jamie take everything from me. You need to kick her out, Sarah insisted stubbornly. Mom, you need to leave, Paul declared, his voice rising. I've had enough of you meddling in my marriage. No matter how much you dislike Jamie, I am not leaving her. I've always made that abundantly clear. You've gone too far with your antics. There is no way you are staying here. Your wife is blackmailing you with the house, Paul. You can't stay with her. Trust me, it will be so much better if you divorce her. I will find you a new wife. Sarah tried to manipulate further. The situation spiraled into chaos. Paul began to shout at Sarah, his anger boiling over. I was equally furious, and my voice joined the tumult as Sarah tried to defend her indefensible actions. The tension was palpable, and it was clear that something had to give in this confrontation. When I had finally had enough, I took decisive action and kicked Sarah out. She looked desperately at Paul for support, but he couldn't even bring himself to meet her eyes. I went to the guest room, grabbed her suitcases, and threw them out the door alongside her. Sarah spent a solid hour weeping on our doorstep until I warned her that I would call the police if she didn't leave. Eventually, she got up and left inside. Paul was overwhelmed with guilt and began to apologize profusely. My mom discreetly went into the kitchen to give us some privacy. Jamie, I'm so sorry. I should have cut ties with my mom a long time ago. All these years, she kept attacking you, and I still allowed her in our lives. I thought she might change and accept you as my wife, but it's clear now she never will, he lamented. Paul, I understand she's your mom and you felt the duty to take care of her. But her behavior has been unbearable. She tried to kick me out of my own home. I responded, my voice firm yet weary. I know Jamie, and I can't believe she went that far. But don't worry, she won't get away with this. I'm going to stop supporting her financially. She doesn't deserve my kindness after what she's done. You won't have to deal with her again, Paul promised, his tone resolute. We spent a long time discussing our boundaries and expectations moving forward, reaching a solid understanding that brought me considerable relief. To lighten the mood, my mom stayed for lunch, and we ordered some delicious meals through DoorDash. Despite the morning's upheaval, the day turned out fairly well, except for my belongings being displaced. It was satisfying in a way to finally show Sarah that her behavior was unacceptable. My mother had spoken to the moving company when they arrived at her place and explained the situation. They agreed to return my belongings, though it would take some time. In the meantime, Sarah didn't cease her attempts to stir trouble. She bombarded Paul with calls and sent me a flurry of texts accusing me of controlling him and forcing him to cut her off. I showed all her messages to Paul, who was livid and found himself in several heated exchanges with his mother over the following days. It felt like we were trapped in an endless cycle. That cycle finally broke when we decided it was time to take legal action. We reported Sarah to the police, pressing charges of trespassing, theft, and harassment. The police were quite taken aback by the extent of her actions and took our complaint seriously. Sarah might not have been violent, but her actions were far from rational. After the incident, we informed her that we had filed a police report and our lawyers began the process of obtaining a restraining order. However, this didn't deter her. She showed up at our house, furious and unapologetic. How dare you file a police report against me? I'm your mother, and I deserve respect. Paul, you can't do this to me, she screamed at us. I'm done being quiet every time you overstep. What you did was a criminal offense. I don't care what the law says. I'm entitled to be in this house. You've even stopped paying me money. I have nowhere to go. You know I ended my lease to live here. I demand you let me in and remove the police report. She continued, her voice filled with rage. That will never happen, Mom. Besides, you don't deserve my money after trying to destroy my marriage, Paul replied firmly. I added, Sarah, you need to stop shouting at our door. We've decided that only the homeowner and her mother will stay here from now on. Since you are neither, you need to leave. My words pushed Sarah over the edge, causing her to have a breakdown right on our doorstep. The neighbors started to peek out of their homes, drawn by the commotion. It was quite embarrassing. At one point, a neighbor approached our front door to ask if he should call the police. When Sarah lunged at him and shouted, he didn't hesitate to dial 911 and let them listen to what Sarah was saying. My mother-in-law continued her tirade until the police arrived and arrested her. This unfortunate spectacle provided us with the necessary evidence to secure a restraining order. Given that Sarah had also been harassing my mother, Paul suggested a surprising solution. Jamie, I think we should let your mom stay with us for a while, he proposed. Sarah knows her address and won't stop harassing her. She's becoming increasingly unhinged, and I'm worried she might escalate her behavior. It would be safest if Rebecca stayed here. Are you sure about this, Paul? I don't want you to feel uncomfortable with her living here, and I don't think Mom would want to impose, I responded, concerned about how the dynamics might affect him. Paul assured me, I feel bad for Rebecca, and it's the right thing to do. I don't mind at all. It's better for everyone's peace of mind if she stays with us for now. He reassured me, saying, I know Rebecca is a reasonable person, Jamie. I have no problem with her staying here. She's very respectful of our boundaries. Besides, only the homeowner and her mother can stay here, right? That joke between us brought out a hearty laugh, lightening the mood despite the circumstances. I could see that Paul was still struggling with the fallout from his mother's actions, but he was earnestly trying to distance himself from Sarah's toxic influence. Cutting ties with a narcissistic parent is a complex and painful process. We've been discussing therapy for Paul to help him navigate these emotional waters. He's open to the idea but needs some time to organize his thoughts. Understanding his mental state, I'm doing my best to support him. Meanwhile, Sarah, cut off from directly contacting us, has been trying to appeal to my mom, Rebecca, to garner sympathy. She laments about how unfairly she's been treated, claiming she has nowhere to go and is now living in her car. Over the years, Sarah has alienated so many people that no one is willing to take her in. Paul remains firm in his decision not to support her financially anymore, forcing Sarah to face the reality of finding a job, an idea that terrifies her, especially with several police reports and an arrest on her record. We've reached a point where we are indifferent to her plight. I can candidly say that I am relieved to see Sarah facing the consequences of her actions. This tough love is long overdue, and while it's harsh, it's necessary for our peace and to finally bring some sanity back into our lives.